You began to control yourself and resist the urges that had previously dominated you. And suddenly things began to change. You were noticed. Women began to perceive you differently. Opportunities arose, and businesses that previously seemed closed began to reopen. But with that came a certain amount of pressure. The temptation grew, the mind grew louder, and you began to wonder, why does reality seem to challenge me more the more energy I accumulate? They say that those who conserve their energy become stronger, more attractive and more productive. And it's true. But no one tells you that by repressing your essence, not only do you grow, but you also become an easy target, because now you radiate exceptional energy. You become a silent threat to a system that exploits your weaknesses. You begin to attract everything you desire and, at the same time, everything that might discourage you. Attractive women, tempting offers, open doors with hidden traps, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. And all true power elicits both good and dangerous reactions. Today you'll discover why semen retention makes you a magnet, why you attract clients, women, and respect, but also why the darkness tries to hold you back. We'll reveal the types of attacks that can occur, the most insidious temptations, and the true battlefield that opens when a man decides to rise again. If you've ever felt that pent-up energy empowers you but also leaves you exposed, if you've noticed that the world tests you as soon as you decide to grow up, this video will show you that you're not going crazy. You're awakening, and more than ever, you must prepare, because those who rise up are the first to be attacked. Ordinary people talk too much. They seek attention through their words, actions, and appearance, but those who practice connection transform something much deeper. Their presence is barely perceptible. It's not the haircut, the clothes, or the body. It's the field. A silent magnetism that begins to form. When we stop indulging in trivial pleasures day after day, suddenly you walk into a room and they sense you without even trying. Women, especially sensitive ones, sense it before they see it. They can't explain it, but they notice it. There's something about this man that others lack. It's a stored energy, an unwasted energy, a creative enthusiasm, a fire that hasn't gone out. We no longer seek to impress, because those who contain themselves are already fulfilled, and those who are fulfilled radiate. And this radiance changes everything. In a world where men are addicted to pleasure, what is contained becomes rare. And what is rare, it attracts. Women sense when you have something precious inside you, and your body expresses it before you even open your mouth. Your posture changes, your gaze becomes more determined, your gait gains rhythm, and above all, the silence is no longer awkward, but authoritative. At that precise moment, something interesting happens. You begin to attract more attention, especially when you stop chasing, because the feminine instinct recognizes your value, even if her conscious mind doesn't understand why. She feels safe with a man who controls his impulses. She yearns for someone who controls his desires. She respects someone who isn't desperate for recognition, but this power comes at a price. Those who radiate energy attract her, and not everything you attract is light. You will be tested. The woman looking at you can be a blessing or a trap. The tension she senses can turn into seduction, temptation, or distraction. What was pent-up energy can become bait if you're not careful, and what seemed like natural charm can turn into ruin if you're not grounded. The first battleground for a reserved man then lies not in the outside world, but in how he manages what attracts him. Those who still have something to prove will fail. Those who still want to stand out will be lost. But if you already understand that moderation is a path to power, not for show, but to achieve a goal, you will begin to recognize who is closest to your essence and who is simply attracted to your energy. It's the fine line between rise and fall. Women sense when you're hoarding sexual energy, but only the right ones will stick around, as long as you don't waste it. Commitment isn't about earning more. It's about earning better. It's not about having everyone. It's about knowing who's really there, looking beyond their aura. And in doing so, you will discover what few men discover. It is not touch that attracts, but presence. It is not desire that dominates, but the domination of desire. The silence of the man who holds back is deafening. For it says, "I have no need of you, but when you come, you will be welcomed by a king." There is a secret that few dare to keep. Sexual energy, when supported and redirected, transforms not only the body, but also the sexual field. And when the sexual field changes, reality reacts. What seemed distant becomes closer. Suggestions emerge, ideas become clearer. Previously invisible paths open naturally, not by chance, but because the human vibration has changed. He no longer lets his power flow in secret. He stores it. And where is it stored? In construction. Storing it is like storing a sacred fire. It transforms the raw material of instinct into energy available to create, conquer, and build. And men who master the days, weeks, and months with this power begin to understand that their words carry more weight, their presence less demanding, their intuition sharpens, and their decisions become more precise. It's as if life begins to trust you more, as if saying, now you're ready. Not to play with opportunities, but to seize them. For sexual energy is not just desire, it is the force of success. It is the same fire that ignites passion. That also sparks vision, focus, and leadership. When you stop wasting this energy in vain, the world notices and responds. Opportunities do not like despair. They hide from those who pray, but they appear to those who walk with presence. And presence grows in those who stop running away from themselves. For every impulse you control, every will you follow without acting, is transformed into inner strength. And it is this inner strength that creates the outward attraction. You begin to be attractive not by your own efforts, but because you are attractive yourself. The man who has become distant, different, stable, and calm, while others seek pleasure, you stand firm and full of energy. This makes you visible to opportunities you were previously unaware of. You feel that you now have the necessary structure to support them. It's no coincidence that so many men report receiving invitations, marriage proposals, and partners after weeks of holding back. Because doors don't open through effort alone, but through vibrations. And your vibrations change completely when you're no longer a slave to your desires, but the master of your home. The energy field surrounding a man thickens when he holds back. Your aura is tightened, strengthened, and harmonized. This is not cheap esotericism, but lived spirituality. Semen is life, and those who carry it within themselves begin to carry an invisible charge that conveys self-confidence, leadership, and perseverance. And opportunities don't seek empty men, but persevering men, capable of enduring the discomfort of silence, the tension of waiting, and the weight of discipline, because only such men can handle success when it comes their way. Don't kid yourself. Don't sabotage yourself. Don't overextend yourself. By containing yourself, you begin to see things before they happen. Your field of vision anticipates. Your body connects with your vision, and it guides your steps with clarity. You stop circling, you begin to build, and like all things that grow, you are seen, felt, and yes, challenged. For the world feels it when a man steps toward power. But in this chapter, the answer isn't to hide, but to embrace it. The opportunities you attract aren't a sign of temptation. They reflect your new level, and you must decide what to do with them, because commitment isn't an end in itself, it's the driving force. What you build from it defines who you become. In a world filled with strategies, metrics, and empty words, one force precedes all energy. The energy a man exudes when he enters a room is more powerful than any argument. It precedes the speech, sets the tone, and convinces before he even says anything. And this energy, which animates negotiations, opens doors, forges alliances, and influences others, comes from a very specific source: inner mastery. Well-managed semen retention is the hidden source of quiet authority. What matters is not what you demonstrate, but what you maintain. The world perceives when a man is at peace with his instincts, when he has nothing to prove, when his energy is focused not on recognition, but on asserting his presence. And that makes all the difference in business, relationships, and partnerships. When a person maintains their vitality, their words carry a different weight. Their gaze is more direct, their posture firmer. Their listening is more attentive. And all of this creates trust. That invisible ingredient that defines human relationships. Because no one fully trusts someone who lacks self-control. But when your energy is controlled, stable, and centered, you send a wordless message. I'm in control, so I can handle anything. This presence transforms your negotiating skills. You accept nothing, not out of arrogance, but out of a lack of appetite. A man who holds back isn't desperate for attention, validation, or quick results. He is focused, and his focus radiates, the world responds with respect. You feel as if you are in the presence of someone who knows what they are doing and is not just doing it. Sexual energy, once transmuted, inspires creativity. It uplifts, touches the mind, accelerates ideas, and illuminates solutions. It is like an invisible source of energy working within you, and this force is the driving force behind everything. A person with this vibration has more ideas, more clarity, more courage. They begin to act before others, to see opportunities where no one else does, and to fill spaces that were previously empty, waiting for someone strong enough to do it. In business, this energy transforms into vision, instinct, and risk-taking. Those who master their desires know how to wait. They have experienced discomfort and resisted temptation, and this strengthens them to face the pressures of the real world. While others lose their minds under stress, they persevere. While others give in to the fear of lack, they persevere. For within them lies an indestructible inner core, and people feel it. Partners, investors, clients, a person focused on their energy creates stability around them. They don't get carried away by the wind. They don't compromise their tranquility and thus become an anchor where others get lost. And anchors always attract each other. But there's something even more subtle. Retention changes your voice, your tone, your way of communicating. You don't have to shout to be heard. Your vibration communicates even before you speak. This is spiritual power in action. It is effortless influence. It is leadership that isn't imposed, but simply manifests. And with this power comes responsibility, because you now attract more. And the greater the influence, the greater the impact. And as the effect intensifies, new challenges will arise. People will want to approach you simply to absorb your energy. Deals will arise that will only weaken your concentration. The offers will be brilliant on the surface, but toxic inside. And remember, pent-up energy is used to build, not to distract. Semen retention puts you at the center of gravity, which is beautiful but dangerous, because everything around you may be trying to devour you. So you must be grounded in your purpose, your vision, and your mission. Otherwise, you will be hampered by the domain you have created. So understand this, you are becoming a leader. Even without asking for it, your energy will place you in positions of influence. Your commitment will shape your destiny. Now it is up to you to decide what to do with this power. For ultimately, it is men who build kingdoms and who have learned to control not only their seed, but also their haste, their ego, and their illusions, channeling all of this into something greater than themselves. Growth does not come alone. It is always accompanied. Expansion breeds seduction. Ascent breeds trials. With the light you carry within you, shadows arise trying to extinguish it. And the man who begins to master his sexual energy enters a territory that few dare to explore. The territory of silent temptations, subtle but devastating. It is easy to resist the obvious, but the real danger hides in the wrinkles of your vanity, in the smiles you now receive more frequently, in the messages that appear out of nowhere, in the compliments you were not used to hearing, in the attention that was once rare and now abundant, because when you accumulate energy, you attract it. But not everything that happens to you is necessarily a blessing. The person who begins to grow, who allows himself to be seen, who radiates an exceptional presence, must understand that he is now observed not only by human eyes, but by invisible forces that test the purity of his intention. The entire universe, in its wisdom, no longer relinquishes its power without first testing your worth. And that test takes the form of temptation. You receive invitations and offers that seem like opportunities, but reek of deception. Women who approach you with beauty, but carry within them an inner emptiness. Shortcuts that promise speed, but demand your true self. And if you still harbor the need to prove your worth, to possess, to boast, and to be desired, you will succumb to these temptations. Semen retention makes you a target, as your energy becomes precious, and all value becomes coveted. What was once invisible is now sought after. The silence you cultivated begins to disturb those who live in noise. The discipline you practice provokes those who live in slavery to their impulses. And the brightness in your eyes becomes a threat to those who have chosen darkness. Temptations come with pretty faces, kind voices, and hidden agendas. They don't say, "I've come to bring you down." They say, "You deserve it. Just this once, you've come far enough." But those who understand the depth of the path know that every step must be sustained, and that every break halfway through costs more than one imagines, for every fall after the climb is more painful, not because one has lost what one had, but because one has betrayed what one has become. The worst pain is not external loss, but internal self-sabotage. When we look at ourselves and realize we've surrendered to what we've already outgrown, growth requires vigilance, not paranoia, but awareness. The more light we carry within, the more we attract the attention of those who would extinguish our flame. And often the enemy is not external but internal. In unresolved anguish, in pride disguised as entitlement, in haste disguised as ambition, those who resist temptation do not isolate themselves from the world, but view it through a transparent filter. It either strengthens or weakens me, and they make their decisions accordingly. They do not get carried away by emotional promises. They do not play games that distract them from their presence. He knows that pent-up energy is too precious to be wasted on fleeting distractions. And most importantly, he understands that holding back doesn't just mean resisting sex, but everything that tries to derail it. It's about finding clarity amidst confusion. It's about holding on when everything around him is telling him to let go. It's about having a purpose stronger than pleasure. Temptations will continue to arise, perhaps even stronger, but from now on, you are no longer the same. You know the value of what you wear. And men who know what they wear don't sell it for nothing. There comes a point in the journey when everything becomes more intense, and not because the world has become worse, but because you have progressed. The field around you has expanded. Your energy has intensified. Your presence has become more assertive, and like a beacon in the darkness, you were seen by people. Certainly, but also by forces that don't want you to grow. Forces that feed on your weakness. Forces that operate invisibly, but which, when a man begins to feed his passion, semen retention is not just a physical or psychological exercise. It's a spiritual statement. It's like silently shouting, "I don't want to be a slave anymore." And it disrupts the system, because awakened people are uncontrollable. Whole beings aren't sold so easily. Repressed people are dangerous because they carry light within them. And where there is light, darkness moves in. The attacks aren't always direct. They're subtle, invisible. First thoughts beyond your control arise. A sudden restlessness, an absurd desire to break the cycle, the feeling that nothing makes sense. And if you're not careful, you'll come to believe these thoughts are natural. But they're not. They're arrows fired at your field of vision, tests of your structure, spiritual traps disguised as doubt. Then people arrive. Some appear out of nowhere. Others seem to have only one goal: to destabilize you. And the funny thing is, they're not necessarily malicious. They often appear benevolent, connected, and full of opportunity. But they give off an energy that's distracting, exhausting, and deceptive. And only a person with a high frequency can perceive this. You notice that your sleep becomes lighter, your dreams more intense, that your body feels strange tensions, and that your energy fluctuates for no apparent reason. And all this has an explanation. You became a target not because you made a mistake, but because you did the right thing, because your restraint activates dormant parts of your being. And this touches on invisible realities. The fight is no longer against the flesh, but against the systems that control desire like a prison. It is against the impulses that try to pull you back to the maternal womb. It is against the silent sabotage that arises when you are about to break with an old identity. These attacks do not seek to destroy you. They seek to test you, to see if you are truly committed, if your discipline is rigorous or simply impulsive. And this is precisely where many men fail, because they believe they are being punished, when in reality they are only being polished. Gold is refined only by fire, and accumulated sexual energy transforms a man into precious metal. But this metal must be tested, and this test involves pressure, confusion, and trials that affect precisely its weak points, because the enemy doesn't attack where you are strong, but where you still have weaknesses. That's why inner vigilance is essential right now. It's not about being suspicious of everything or everyone, but about being present enough to notice when something doesn't fit with your path. It's about recognizing when a conversation, a video, an invitation, a thought, is contaminated by an invisible poison. And therein lies the secret. The more attacks you endure, the more your progress is confirmed. Hell doesn't turn against those who remain motionless. It rises against those who release their energy. And by mastering yourself, you regain your original power. You say to your body, I am the keeper of my energy, and that changes everything. So when the attacks come, and they will breathe, step back, raise your vibrations, pray, meditate, and strengthen your spirit, for they succeed only if you forget who you are. You then become a man who remembers, a man on guard, a man who knows he is a target, not a victim, but a warrior. Not everything comes with money. Some of the greatest costs of evolution are emotional, and one of the most difficult is this: the loneliness that accompanies those who choose the high road. When you begin to conserve your energy, awaken your consciousness, and walk with a firm step, something inevitable happens. You move backward not by will, but because the world no longer recognizes who you are becoming. Semen retention is more than a discipline. It's a transformation. And every transformation creates a temporary disconnect. You begin to realize that you no longer belong in the conversations you once had, that the friends who shared your distractions now seem distant, that the places that once entertained you now exhaust you, that the invitations you once accepted without thinking now seem meaningless. You've changed, but the world hasn't yet. This stage is lonely and painful, because everything within you is crying out for a sense of belonging. But you now belong to a different frequency, and only a few still resonate with it. You begin to live in silence with a power few understand. This alienates you, marginalizes you, because those who become exceptional are inevitably misunderstood. People can't explain it, but they feel it. They sense your stability, your lack of need, your focused energy, and it often bothers them. They don't know why, but they withdraw into themselves or try to bring you back to normal. And you feel that even when surrounded, there is an invisible wall between you and the world. This wall is called consciousness. The solitude of the awakening is a transition, a stage between the old and the new, between the crowd and the mission. And in this transition we find silence, a dense and deep silence that sometimes hurts, because deep down we long for someone who understands, who shares the burden, who has a look that says, I see you. But the warrior's path begins in the desert. And in the desert, the only voice that remains is your own. In that silence, you gain strength. You hear what was once lost in the noise of the world. You realize how distracted, divided, and scattered you were. And then you begin to recompose yourself, to refocus, to discover that within you resides a presence that never abandons you, a self that never betrays you, a spirit that has never abandoned you. At this point, something begins to change. You are no longer afraid of solitude, for you understand that the solitude of the righteous is not abandonment, but devotion. You are set apart, prepared, purified, to occupy places that few have the structure to support, to carry an energy that few have the courage to protect, to live a mission that demands more than words. It demands purity. And here's the truth no one tells you. The price of purity is isolation. The price of clarity is misunderstanding. The price of strength is silence. But when you accept that price, something sacred happens. You cease to be a mere human being seeking protection and become a temple, a guardian, a point of light in a world that worships darkness. Those who endure this silence become leaders. Not leaders of the masses, but leaders of what matters. Men whose presence is enough. Men who create space with their gaze. Men who do not shout but transform. Men whose energy heals, guides, and uplifts because they have embraced the path, because they have faced the dark night and gone forward, where everyone else has stopped. If you feel alone today, remember, even gold will eventually break. Eagles fly alone, seeds germinate in the dark. Silence doesn't punish you, it prepares you. The absence of outside voices is an invitation to listen to your inner voice, which keeps whispering, keep going. You are not lost. You are being purified because ultimately, it is not the number of friends that determines your path, but the quality of your connection with the eternal. And when you find this, even silence becomes companionship. For even solitude at school, even the emptiness on an altar, somewhere along the way something changes forever. It is no longer a conscious decision or a difficult discipline. Moderation, once an effort, now becomes instinctive. The energy you once held back through resistance now flows out with reverence. At this point, you are no longer an ordinary person practicing a spiritual practice. You have become a living altar. Your energy not only radiates but governs. Consecration is not an outward ritual, but an inner state. Your body becomes a temple, your mind a sword and your soul a throne. You no longer have anything to prove. You no longer need to hide. Your mere presence transforms your environment. Your words are powerful. Your gaze radiates strength. Your silence inspires respect. For your sexual energy transforms into spiritual authority. This cannot be learned, improvised, or bought. It is achieved only by traversing the valleys of temptation, the deserts of solitude, and the struggles of the invisible. And they stayed. Those who persevere are recognized not by the brilliance of their accomplishments, but by the sincerity of their spirit. They don't need convincing. They convince simply by their presence. And then you understand, everything had meaning. The desire, the struggle against impulses, the falls, the new beginnings, the isolation, the trials, all this was the fire that shaped your being. All this was preparing for that moment when pleasure would no longer be your god, but your instrument, when sex would no longer be a goal, but a sacred expression, when your energy would no longer drive you, but obey you. For from now on you govern yourself, and that is the only rule that matters. Power over others is fragile, but power over oneself is eternal. This is why semen retention ultimately becomes the path to sovereignty. A man who withholds his semen not only resists lust, but also engages in prostitution. And this is why one becomes a target. For one's light disturbs, one's solidity exposes, one's presence betrays. Systems that thrive on distraction cannot tolerate awareness. Energies carried by desire cannot support purity. Relationships based on need cannot survive your abundance, and environments without purpose cannot adapt to your frequency. But all of this is a statement. You were not created to be accepted by all. You were created to be true to what you carry. You were not created to please the world, but to align yourself with heaven. And now your energy is a testimony, a visible sign of an invisible reality, a silent proclamation that it is possible to live with intensity and purity, with desire and mastery, with strength and humility. You are becoming a model, even if you don't want to, even if you don't say so. Even if you do not preach, your own path is inspiring, for you have become exceptional, and the exceptional, even when persecuted, are remembered, not for the titles they have earned, but for their presence, not for their words, but for their embodiment. From now on, you no longer live as a victim of your desires. You live as a priest of your energy. And when that happens, everything changes. The clients you meet are more in tune. The women you approach are more attentive. The friendships you form are deeper. The mission before you is clearer, because when your energy becomes authority, the universe conspires with respect. No more rushing, and, by the way, no more noise. There is a direction. There is no longer a fall, only an ascent. And this ascent does not lead to an external throne, but to an internal state, to a godly person. And this person, even as a goal, remains unshakable, because his armor is invisible, and his strength comes from within. He no longer needs to conquer others, because he has already conquered himself. And that's the real victory. If this video touched your heart, don't miss it. Subscribe to the channel now. Here we talk like no other about self-mastery, spiritual energy, and masculine awakening. Comment below, I am the master of my destiny. Don't miss our other videos. Each one is a key to understanding the hidden power within you. Share this with anyone who needs a wake-up call. Sometimes, a video is enough to pull someone out of the darkness. You are not alone. This is an invisible training ground for those who refuse